Hi everyone, my name's Rebecca and I'm going to be showing you how to make the easiest crochet beanie ever. So if this is your first crochet project, it's a great one. I'm not a YouTube expert, but I'm putting these videos together because I've had the opportunity since we've all been in lockdown with COVID-19 restrictions to teach some crochet at SisterWorks. So it's not that easy to do online, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to put some of the techniques on video to help the sisters learn online. They're doing a great job so far, but it's really hard to see what they're doing and for them to see what I'm doing. So we're kind of muddling along at the moment, but it's been good fun and hopefully this will help them with their beanies. So the reason this beanie is so easy, this is like a newborn size, it's pretty small, but it's basically just, if I undo it, I haven't actually finished this off because I wanted to show you how it's constructed. If I undo it, just get the bit up at the top, if I pull that out, you can see that the whole beanie is made just from a rectangle. So it's the easiest thing to crochet, and it's actually crocheted this way. So you start at the bottom, this way. You start at the bottom here, and you do your foundation row across, and then you work backwards and forwards in rows. So the reason it's a good one to do is that you don't have to worry about how tight or loose you crochet, or your gauge. You make it to fit. So what you need to do is measure the head of the person that you want the beanie to fit. So from the top of the head down to the ears with a bit folded over. So if you imagine that length, that's the length of the head. So you want to measure that. If you've got a tape measure, use a tape measure. So this one's pretty small, it's 15, so it's probably a preemie newborn kind of size. I've got one that I've made here. I was off to go walking in the Lake District in December. Seems like as in England, a long time ago. So this one is about 28 long, so that fitted me, the top of my head down to my ears and folded back up again. So it doesn't matter, you can see it doesn't matter what size you're doing, and this is a completely different type of wool. It's all the same. So you measure your head, and then you do a chain that length. So I'll be showing you how to do a chain, the right length, and then you work backwards and forwards in a stitch that's called half treble, back loop only. And that seemed a bit of a mouthful. The sisters called it straight away beanie stitch, so we can refer to it as beanie stitch, but it basically gives it that rib texture. You see it's kind of quite stretchy. So that gives it a bit of stretch, so it will fit to someone's head quite nicely. So basically all you do is, if you get that measurement right at the start, you just keep crocheting in a rectangle until it fits the head around. And that's all you have to do. And at the end of it, I'll show you how to sew it up and sew up the front, and then you can add anything you like. You can add pom-poms, tassels, or anything. So most people, when they get started on crocheting something like this, they go, well, what wool will I use? And the answer is absolutely anything. You can make a hat, a beanie like this, out of any wool that you like. And just to demonstrate that, I'm going to show you a few samples that I've knocked up. So I'll start with the smallest here. This one is a little baby 4-ply, and this little sample was 5 stitches by 5 rows, and I did that in a 4mm hook. This one is an 8-ply, and I did that in a 6mm hook. This one here is a bamboo cotton, and I did that also in a 4mm hook. So it's similar but slightly different. So if you're trying to measure it by number of stitches, it's very easy to get the dimensions wrong. So if you just do it by the dimensions that you match your number of stitches to the length you want, it's a lot easier. I've got another one here that's quite good for babies. It's called Silky Cash Merino, and that was from Wool Bar in Port Melbourne, which is a great place to go if you want to go and get wool, and they can probably help you out with hooks as well. This one here is a gorgeous wool from, I got this from Morris and Sons in Collins Street. By the way, I'm in Melbourne, so for those of you in Melbourne that know any of these shops, so that's a picture of the ball. This is about an 8-ply, and it gives you a nice like mixture of colours worked up. But you can see that that's a lot bigger, same number of stitches, but it'll knit up a lot quicker. This one here, this one is also from, this is one of Morris and Sons own brands, a 10-ply. This one will knit up similar. I did that in a 7mm hook, so that one's very similar to that in size. Or if you really want to go super chunky, I picked up this wool here at the local Red Cross op shop. It's fantastic bargain, and that is same. That was with my 15mm hook, 5 rows and 5 stitches. So you can see the same number of stitches in all of these samples. Oops. All of these samples are exactly the same number of stitches, so you can make a hat as chunky or as fine as you like. You just need to match the hook with the wool size. What I'll do in this video is put a table of suggested hook sizes. Quite often on the back of the wool packet you'll see recommendations, usually for knitting. So this one says a 3.25mm knitting needle. Usually for clothes I recommend going up a size or 2 in millimeters. So for this I would usually crochet this in a 4 or 4.5mm hook, because otherwise crochet tends to be a little bit tighter than knitting, because it's thicker. It works up a bit thicker, the stitches are a little bit thicker. So the other thing to look at when you're choosing, sorry, this is a little bit hard to see on this label, but is to check the washing instructions, so that if you want something for a baby, it's a good idea to get machine washable. So this one here says gentle machine wash. I don't know if you can see that. And again, I think it should give the hooks. Yeah, so this one is also a 3.25. So I would add 1 and go a 4. So that's in general. I would add at least 1 to the size if you want the hook. So hooks. This is a 4mm hook. The sizes are printed on the hook. You probably can't see that, but the hook. This one's a metal hook, and I like either metal or bamboo. You can get them made out of plastic or aluminium, which is fine. I prefer the slightly heavier weight of these ones, but it's a personal preference, so it's really whatever you've got. So if you've got a hook somewhere, you can match it to some wool, or choose some wool that you like in a shop and find a hook to match. So as you can see, the range of yarn that you can use is endless, and you just need to match the hook and the yarn. This table shows recommended hook sizes for the weight of yarn that you're using for your beanie. The best way to work out the size of beanie to make, the size of rectangle that you need, is to measure the head that the beanie is going to go on. If that's not possible, this chart may help with the dimensions. The shorter dimension is the chain row that you're doing, the foundation row. Then the longer dimension is the length of work. Okay, let's get on with making the beanie. The first thing you need to do is make a slip knot. The easiest way to do that is to grab your yarn in your left hand, wrap it around your finger, make a loop, put it over and pull it tight. what I should have mentioned before is try and leave quite a long tail so that you can use that for sewing up. Doesn't matter if you haven't, but it's easier to sew it up with that. And then put your hook through the loop that you've made and pull it tight. And in your left hand, I tend to hold my wool like that. In my right hand, I hold my hook like a knife. So I'm going to be using my right hand to twist the hook. With my left hand, I hold the work between my thumb and my third finger. So from there, I'm going to do the chain, wrap it around the hook, and twist my hook so that I can pull it through just next to the previous stitch. Am I in focus? Hard to tell. So you keep doing that, and wrap it around and pulling it through to make the chain. And you want this chain to be long enough to go from the top of the head down to the ears and fold it back up. So depending on the head size that you're making this for, is the length of chain that you need to make. So you can see I'm pulling this work down a little bit to keep a little bit of tension on the work. So once that's chain's long enough to go from the top of your head down to your ears and fold it back up, that's the length of chain that you want it to be. So once you've done that and you've measured that and you're happy with that length, you're going to come back doing what we call the beanie stitch, or the half treble back loop only stitch. So you start off by doing 2 turning chain, like that, and then the half treble, loop your yarn around your hook, come in, so it's now the third chain from the hook, you put it into that space at the top of the chain there. So you'll end up with 3 loops on your hook. Yarn around, pull it through once, you yarn around and you put it through all 3 on the hook. Try that again. Yarn around, push it in there, yarn around, put it through the chain. You've got 3 on the hook. Yarn around, pull it through all 3. Yarn around. You keep doing that. Yarn around, put it through once. Yarn around, put it through all 3. You keep doing that till you get to the end of the row. When we get to the end of the row, it's very important to count the number of stitches you've done, because probably the easiest mistake to make when you're doing crochet is to increase and decrease the number of stitches when you don't mean to. And the most common cause of that is just not counting your stitches every row and not quite being sure where to stop at the end of the row. So when I get to the end of the row, get my stitches and hope that every row after that is going to have the same number. The chain row actually is the hardest one to do, because once you've done that one, it's a lot easier to kind of see where the stitches are. The chain sometimes can be a little bit tight, but don't worry, just kind of force your hook into the hole and you should be right. So that's my row. I'm going to count my stitches 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I've got 19 stitches there. And to count my stitches, can you see each of those stitches? If you've got like a V at the top of the stitch, it's like a little V. That is 1 stitch. So when you're counting it, that V is 1 stitch, and then that one there's another stitch there. You can see that. 3, 4. So I've got to the end of the row. Then I'm going to come back. First of all, I'll do my 2 turning chain. around, and I'm going to go into the back loop only of the V there. Normally in crochet you go through both like that, so when you do conventional crochet stitch you're going to have both of those on there, but in this stitch to get that rib we go into the back loop only like that. That's why it's called half treble back loop only, or if you're in America you call it half double crochet back loop only for some reason. I don't know why US and UK crochet is different, it just is. It can be very confusing, but anyway, so make sure you just go into that back loop and you just keep going all the way to the end. So I might leave you to keep doing that, and then I will show you how to finish off the work. Now I'm coming to the last stitch of the second row there, and as I mentioned, one of the biggest problems that beginner crochet people have is increasing and decreasing when they don't want to, so they don't make a rectangle. So in the first stitch, one of the tips I've got is in the first stitch of the next row, what you can do, I'll just do the second one there as well, is that because you know that that one there was the first stitch, I'm just going to put a safety pin in there, and that's like a little marker, so when I come back I know that that one is going to be the last stitch of the row. So if you have trouble counting the stitches, or you keep missing one or increasing one, it usually happens at either end of the rows. So when I come back for the next row, I'll just hit this one and go, oh yeah, I know. So if you have a couple of safety pins, one at each end, do it the same at the other end, it can help guide you to finish the row at the right time. Otherwise it's quite easy to either miss a stitch or do one too many at the end of the row. So I'll leave you to finish off your beanie. Keep working until you get the length that you need to go around the gather up at the top, that goes around your head. So you keep trying it on for size, and you also want to make sure that it's a little bit smaller than your head, because as you can see it's quite stretchy, so you want to give it a little bit of a stretch before you measure it, so that otherwise it's going to be a bit baggy on your head. So the next thing I'll do is teach you how to sew it up. Congratulations, you've got to your very last stitch of your beanie. So I'm going to show you how to finish it off. So that's your very last stitch. So what you want to do is leave quite a tail. Cut your wool. Just grab your wool and pull it through all the way. Once you've pulled it through, you pull it tight, it can't unravel anymore. That's it, well done. So that's the end of your crochet beanie. Now we need to turn it into a beanie shape. So what I did here, when I started this I didn't leave enough to sew that up, so I'm going to use this one to sew up. So what you want to do is fold it over, and you should match each stitch up along there, if you can see that. So I'm going to be doing what I sometimes do is actually just use my crochet hook to pin it together, just to hold it together. So what I'm going to do here is match up each stitch and sew it up. So grab a needle, any needle. I usually use a blunter one than this, but I can't find it. So any needle that you can get your wool through the whole of. So this one's a little bit small, but it'll do. Okay. And then you grab your work. And I'm doing the stitch, and I think it might be called mattress stitch, but I'm going to go through both loops there of my chain row. That. So I go through from the front to the back. that, and then I'm going to come back through, oh, where is it? There we go, both stitches on the V, the top of the stitch. So I'm just going to weave backwards and forwards like that, go in through there. Now it doesn't really matter how you sew this up because it kind of gets lost in the beanie. But I find weaving it backwards and forwards like that gives me the neatest finish. If you don't have a needle, you can even crochet it together, but you can see when I open it up like that, it's pretty flat and you can't really see the seam. So just keep weaving it backwards and forwards. Just keep doing that. Until you get to the end. So I've sewn up the two short ends together with that mattress stitch, weaving it backwards and forwards. So you can, it kind of hides it pretty well in the beanie. You can't really see the seam that much. And the next thing to do is to gather up the top. So this is fairly easy because you can see that there's a series of bumps around, and all I do is thread through the last stitch in the row of each bump. See, that's, I'm threading that through there, if you can see that. So one through. So you can see that that's going to start to gather it together. So here we go. Just thread it through very last stitch of the raised rows like that. Until you get back round to the, can't see the other side, there's the start there. So just kind of thread it through, it doesn't really matter exactly where, because once you've done that, if I pull tight, that should close up that hole, like that, and there's your finished beanie shape. There you go. So you probably want to secure this a little bit more because you've only got one piece of thread going around. So if I pull it tight, careful not to break the yarn, and then if I get my needle and I kind of just thread it back through the gathered bit at the end there. So just give it another round. And if you're going to put a pom-pom on the top, it really doesn't matter how neat this is because it's going to get covered anyway. You just kind of pull it, you keep going around until it pulls tight. Keep going around. So there you go. So that's me finished the end off like that. So if you just want to make sure that the end's not going to unravel, the easiest way to do that is just to do a little stitch like that. So you've got a loop, put your needle through the loop like that, and give it a little tug, and that's not going to come undone now. Then you want to just thread through to lose the ends, and cut the work off there to lose it. So you want to cut your work off there. Then you've got one more end here, just to hide away, so let's just use that needle. We just need to see if we can lose this end. It won't come unravelled, it's the start of our chain. I wish I could find my bigger needle. Never mind. Okay, so I just need to kind of weave it. It's called weaving in the end, so I'll weave in the ends and I'm going to pull it through to the back so you can't see. Cut it off close to your work. beanie. Let's turn it up and you're done. Well done. Congratulations on your first crochet